long it's been since I've been gone 2 Sundays in a row. I feel all pent up. So for the last 2 weeks, I was down in the Florida Keys with my son, my daughter-in-law, and my 2 grandsons during their spring break. And we had wonderful, wonderful experiences. First of all, it was in the 80s. They had rented a house on a canal that was almost within earshot of the open ocean, east side of the Keys water. And you had to go out there in a boat with no wake, so it was kind of putt, 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 putt for about 10 minutes or so. And then you could hear the boats go as they hit the open water and zoomed off to do their boat kind of thing. But it was just beautiful. I had sunrises on the water with my son. I had sunsets on the water with my son and my grandson. I had many sunrises with a wonderful cup of coffee out on the deck, just watching life come to life. And it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. But it was a beautiful, beautiful experience because I made it a beautiful, beautiful experience. Because I have history with my son and my daughter-in-law and my grandchildren and their spring break vacations. And the reason that I bring that up is I want us to focus on not letting our history become our destiny unless we really like our history. And for me, I was kind of living in a fantasy world. The first time I went on vacation with my son, we went out to the Outer Banks and they rented this house. And it was this great adventure and experience. I drove out there to Topsail Island. I'd never been to the Outer Banks of the state of North Carolina. I was used to Miami Beach. And what I noticed at the Outer Banks of North Carolina is that the tide comes way up to the houses, and then the tide goes way out, and that is the beach. You get the beach when the tide is out. The thing about the tide going out is that the tide was just in. And so the sand is kind of wet and there's buggy and crabby and that kind of thing. And that was different. But the thing that I really noticed was different was the discrepancy between what my expectations of my experience was going to be and what actually happened. And I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you think you're going into one thing and it's not. So the second time I went on vacation with my son was a little over a year ago, and we went to Costa Rica. And I had these great expectations of going out on boats and fishing for sailfish and having this beautiful bay with this private beach, which is what the brochure said that rented the house. What I noticed about Costa Rica, this was called a rustic vacation. And any of you who know about rustic vacations know that that means that you don't have necessarily electricity. You certainly aren't going to have hot water, and you're really grateful if you have running water. So this was a rustic vacation, and in Costa Rica, it's fascinating building codes. The walls come up to about here, and then it's open to the roof. And they say the homes are screened in, and that's true, but the screening in Costa Rica has holes this big in it. It's just to keep the monkeys out. It's not to keep out the lizards or the toads or the bugs. They have free reign of the house. In Costa Rica, even though it was January, it was in the 90s during the day, and that was different than what I was used to. So this time, I really sat with whether or not I was going to go on this vacation. And I got clear inside of myself because I did not want my history to become my destiny. And so what I asked myself is, Barbara, first important question, do you really want to go on this vacation? Because the truth is you're the grandmother. You know you're going to take care of Noah, who's 6. Noah is not that big of a fisherman. He's not that big of a water kid. He likes to draw, and if you give him anything electronic, he'll be gone for 12 hours. Noah needs someone to stay at home with him and make sure he's okay. So do you want this? Because this is not a fantasy in your head of a vacation that you would have with John or anything that you would really set up from start to finish. So the first question was, given the fact that you kind of know what you're getting into now, do you want to do it? And I thought, I am being invited on a vacation by my 39-year-old son. Yes, I want to do it. And not only do I want to do it, I want to do it better than I've ever done it before. Because all of those other experiences were a result of the difference between what I had made up in my head that I was going into and what I was really going into. So I wanted to be brutally honest with myself. And I wanted to also make sure that he wanted me to come, because sometimes, I don't know if you do this with your kids, but sometimes I can make up that they want me to do something, and they didn't really say that. So I called him up, and I said, I want to be crystal clear. Do you really want me to go on your vacation? This is your family vacation. This is your wife. It's your kids. You've got the house on the water with the boat and all of that. Do you really want me there 24/7 for those 10 days? And he said, I really want you there. He said, you are not an imposition in my life, and if you feel like you're imposing yourself on my life, I wish you would do it more. I wish you would just drop by more. I wish you would show up at things more. I wish you would be a bigger part of my life. Well, that was worth the 10 days right there. And so I went with such a clear intention. I was so proud of myself. I went to be in love. And I didn't care how it looked. I didn't care if I ever went out on the boat. I didn't care if I ever got out to the beach. I didn't care if I ever went snorkeling on the reefs out on the Keys. I didn't care if those things happened to be great if they did, but that wasn't why I went. I went to be in love. I went to be in love with my son, who still wants me to come into his life. I went to be in love with my daughter-in-law, who loves my son so much that she stays with him. I went to be in love with my grandson, who's 10, and pretty soon he's not going to be that thrilled that his grandmother is around. And I went to be in love with my grandson, who is 6, who still thinks I'm pretty great. So I went to be in love, and that was my intention the entire time. And I gotta tell you, it was by far the best vacation with them ever, because I did that. And so when I would cook dinner, I would cook dinner in love. When I would go grocery shopping, I would go grocery shopping in love. When I would stay home, I would stay home in love. When I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and get all dressed to go fishing and make coffee and sit out and wait for someone to wake up to see if I got to go fishing that day, I would do it in love. And if I didn't get to go fishing that day, I would stay in love, because I was going to make my future different from my past. And I was not going to allow myself to create these ideas inside of my head that were not real. Instead of saying, this is what you're walking into it with your eyes open and walk into it aware. So that if you don't want to walk into it, don't go. But if you want to go there clear. Because when we do that, then we have an opportunity to create our lives anew. And it was wonderful. How many people can say that they spent a week with their children and their families, and it was a great, great time? How many people can say that they can spend a day with anyone of their family of origin and say it was a great, great time? It's not them. They're great. It's always us. Every time I have an unrealistic expectation of what anyone is going to be like, and they are not that way because they are true to their nature, which is what they have always been like, and I get disappointed, that's not them. They just kept on being them. It's me. It's up to me to change how I see my life if I'm going to have my future change. The way that the future changes can only be because my experience of it changes. Don't let your history become your destiny if you don't like your history. And I know some of you have history. Some of you have history with each other. That's a joke. Don't let that continue on if you don't want it. Whatever your history is with anybody, you've got to let go. And this is Palm Sunday, so this is the week that Christendom celebrates Jesus arriving in Jerusalem, and the masses were singing Hosanna and putting the palms down, and you think he didn't know what he was walking into? Come on. This man who could raise the dead and make the blind see and pull money out of a fish's mouth, he knew exactly what he was doing. So what is the metaphysical meaning of that? He was letting go of his history. And in the Christian model, he was letting go of his humanness so that he could move into his divinity. And so I look at that and I say, what is it that we need to let go of in our past that had us small so that we can move into our greatness that has us big? What is it that we need to completely surrender to? Oh, Barbara, don't say that word. I want to be in control. That's why I like spiritual mind treatment so much, because I can manifest my life exactly to the penny, exactly the way I want it. No, we surrender to that part of us that is already there. What is it that we need to let go of that keeps us small so that we can move into that greater experience that has us big? When I came back to North Carolina, what I noticed was that the butterflies are out. You know, the caterpillar cannot stay the caterpillar if it's ever going to be a butterfly. And nobody gives the caterpillar a book of instructions on what it's going to be like. Caterpillars don't go to pre-butterfly training seminars. Now, this is what you can expect. You're going to turn to goo, so just get ready for it and be okay. No, they spin a cocoon, which is to keep them safe, and then they let it all go. Sometimes I think that this is our cocoon that keeps us safe, and then we let it all go. And there is that complete destruction of every bit of form that the caterpillar is. And it does turn into the technical scientific term of goo. But inside of the goo is the equally technical scientific term called imaginal cells. They imagine themselves into something different. And those imaginal cells affect the other cells, and they come together in a completely new form. The caterpillar must release being a caterpillar if it's ever going to be a butterfly. And there is that within us that must release everything that has us as less than if we are going to morph into that incredibly beautiful being, that winged being that we are. So I ask you today, what is your history that you do not wish to live again? It's not about other people. It's not about the jobs. It's not about the economy. It's not about the doctors. It's not about your body. It's not about your bank account. It's all about you. What is it that you hold on to that you continue to make the same assumptions and the same choices based on over and over and over again that puts you in a position of living that out over and over and over again? Now in psychology they call this a repetitive pattern. So if you look at your relationships and you say, well, all of the men I've ever been in relationship with, or all of the women I've ever been in relationship with, they're all the same. Well, the common denominator, there's you. It's not them. All of the bosses that I've had are the same. All of the bank accounts that I've had are the same. All of this, fill in the blank, is the same. That means that it's you. That you are holding on to this idea, which is probably has very little basis in reality and is mostly made up in your head anyway. You're holding on to this idea as truth and therefore creating that as your future and your reality. I haven't been on high heels in 2 weeks. It's springtime. The seed has to stop being a seed. The root has to stop being a little root. Life has to stop being what it was in order for it to be something more. So as we move through the days of going, oh my God, isn't that beautiful? Oh, look at the cherry blossoms, look at the pear trees, look at the daffodils, and the tulips are coming up. You got it, David? Am I the only mic in the room on? Would you turn the monitor off then? Well, I don't know then. I'll go stand over here. When you look around at life this time of year and look at the marvelous beauty of it all, understand that every last thing that you are considering beautiful at this moment had to give up its history in order to have a new destiny. It had to give up who it thought it was in order to become something more. This is our time to morph. This is our time to transform. This is our time to grow. Is it your history? If you like it, keep it, because it will be your destiny. If you don't like it, change it, because what you change it into will then become your destiny. You are the one in charge. You are the one who decides, and so it is.